just want to tell y'all how much I love God. So I told y'all I've been dealing with burnout, and I feel like I'm actually on the other side of it because I have a legitimate plan. I've been working the plan and being consistent as far as enforcing boundaries with my time. The one area I still have to work on is with my job, but I have a plan for that, and I've been implementing that plan. I relaxed the plan the last 2 months. Well, the last few weeks because I got the plan last month, and I feel like it's paid off because one is that with this release, so I've had 2 major releases with this app that I work on, and basically last month we rewrote the whole app. This month we implemented new features so that our customers can fix issues themselves, which means we in the long run save money and are able to resolve issues much quicker, because if you have to go to customer support, that feedback loop isn't as fast. Whereas with the features that I've been working on, customers can solve things for themselves. But God showed up and did some extra stuff and really just put everything in perspective for me, which to me is the bigger win, because God being so awesome and dope and just great gave me so much confirmation last week about me being in purpose and doing what I'm supposed to do in this season. So I've known ever since I was a little girl that my purpose was to help people in some way and be an advocate for others, which is how God led me to law school at one point. I'm gonna finish one day. I'm gonna keep putting that in the atmosphere because it's gonna happen. But anyway, that led me to law school. And then as I've been a software engineer, God led me to that. He used my cousin to be able to water the seed, because my mom started out in computer science when I was in middle school, and she ended up changing her major, but I was seeing the stuff she was having to do in her first few classes. But nonetheless, God redirected me, and as clear as day told me this is where from a marketplace perspective, this is where I'm supposed to be at this time in my life. And I've always desired to be able to connect the helping and healing people part of my purpose with software engineering. God definitely gave me a vision for that, and I need to tap back into that, and hopefully we'll try to get some of that done this week. But I've been able to do that through volunteerism, like working with Black Girls Code. So teaching kids to write code, teaching tech classes, teaching kids to write code in classes, both with Black Girls Code and with my friend's nonprofit. And I've also, in 2020, I taught some different classes about building your own website and things like that. So all that to say, I prayed and asked God that wherever I would work, it would have this list of things: people of integrity, work-life balance. And I realize now the work-life balance was on me, because I need to enforce the boundaries and I need to have like a set start and stop time. And again, this is a one-off situation because we were rewriting the application. Nonetheless, God gave me a lot of stuff, and God affirmed me that I'm where I'm supposed to be yet again, by showing me how the app and company I work for is really helping people, because someone I know is using the app. And it's just like, it really put it in perspective for me, because I'm able to do something that God gifted me to do, to be able to help someone in the long run. And I know that the things that I'm working on, like the code and the features that I'm putting in the app, are actually helping somebody. So that made me like really made my day and really made my weekend. But no, y'all know God is extra like me. But actually even more extra than me. God doesn't do anything small. He does everything big. Like I said, he affirmed me this week in my purpose in regards to helping others heal, and whether healing in any area of their life. And so 3 separate people affirmed me, and I don't even know that they were aware of it, but God used 3 separate people. So last Sunday I picked up my juice from Miss Barbie, and I just was talking to her, just casually talking to her. Every time I see her, I just love her energy. I love being around other people who are called to healing, and because it just like it emanates from them, and that it's just like it's so refreshing to my spirit to be around people who are passionate about healing and ministering healing to others, however God has called them to do that. That being said, so in the course of our conversation, she just really affirmed me and saying, like, I love your content, and I love that anytime you find something, you share it with other people because you don't want to keep it to yourself. And that, I don't even know that she did that, so I'm gonna tag her. But I want to say thank you, Miss Barbie, because, and I think I told you thank you on Sunday, but I want to say thank you because while I wasn't necessarily doubting my purpose, I have been experiencing attacks that made me question it. And so, again, that was one. Then God used my best friend. She asked me, like, how did I begin my healing journey? And for me, healing is very much tied to me receiving my calling. When God spoke to me when I was 18, when I was crying out in prayer and asking God to heal me, heal my family, God told me to preach. Of course, I'm not doing that in a traditional way, but when he called me to do that, I became hungry to seek after anything that God put in front of me. I wanted to know more about God. I wanted to know more about his word, understand his word, so that way I could, one, it could help me heal, so that way I could be able to share what I was learning with other people. And y'all may not know, but for several years that sat dormant because I was in college. I looked into like my options for transferring. I looked in seeing I could cross register at ITC, but I got busy with life and didn't like focus on it, like very much so. Like my junior years when I was diagnosed with lupus nephritis, I went on to prove that it wasn't that because my serologies continue to come back negative. I have been being tested for lupus since I was 17, and another nephrologist agreed that that wasn't the diagnosis. Nonetheless, it wasn't until I had my transplant in 2009 that God reminded me in a dream what he called me to do. And so after that, I began to seek after God again, and more so, even before that, like right after I graduated, I began to really seek after and pray to God, asking God what my purpose was. So I thought I was supposed to become a counselor. So I applied to graduate school at the Citadel for clinical counseling. I got in the program, but God was telling me that there was more to my purpose. Then I had my transplant, or actually maybe I had my transplant before this happened. Nonetheless, I can't really remember that at this point because this was like 2009. Then my dad, his health ended up declining, and it was during that time when my dad was diagnosed that he only had a few months left to live, that I was really, really praying about healing and just praying and believing that God would heal my dad. And I was really close to this older couple that attended a church that my ex-boyfriend's family attended, and they really just poured into me, and it was through them that God like told me that he called me to healing ministry. And so when my dad wasn't healed how I thought he was going to be healed, I questioned whether I heard God correctly. And so God, being the kind of guy he is, didn't let up on me. And so instead of me hearing things audibly like I used to, or getting like a knowing for myself for things pertaining to me, God would speak to me in dreams. He still does speak to me in dreams now. And I have tons of things that have happened in my life that I saw first in a dream, namely my son. The biggest of all, rather, being my son. But it wasn't until I went through a lot of different things. Like, God just kept putting it on my heart to go to law school and different things with that journey. And then when I had my son, like, the next major catalyst for me to heal was getting pregnant with him and like the circumstances around my pregnancy. And then it was during that time, like, I was just hungry. I was like, God, I have been praying for years that you would heal me from my stuff so that I wouldn't project it onto my future family and so my future husband and kids. And me getting pregnant, the child came first. So I prayed day in and day out, asking God to help me to heal, show me any areas in my life I needed to uproot. And honestly, I missed a major thing. Let me back up. So after I had my transplant, God spoke to me again about writing a book. And I knew that I was supposed to write about forgiveness because before I had my transplant, God pressed my heart that I needed to write a letter to every person who had wronged me and for everything I was holding on to, sit this chair in the room as if that person was there and read the letter. And I took it a step further. After I read those letters, I burned it. If you know, I ended up writing a book on forgiveness. And that for me was the opening. That was the catalyst that opened up forgiveness for me and, well, healing for me, because the healing that I was praying and believing God for was being blocked because I was holding on to bitterness and anger. That being said, fast forward to now and having written the book, having gone through other situations like rejecting my kidney and bouncing back from that. Like, I know for a fact that God has called me to healing, and talking to my best friend last Monday and just chronicling the different things that have happened in my life that God has called me to heal from, and me sharing that was just like, above all, I just was praying and I was desperate to be healed. And I didn't know that it was going to start. I didn't know it was going to start in my heart first. I didn't know that God was going to deal with my heart first before he began to deal with the physical. But what God has taught me over the years is that being that we are a tripart being, we are spirits possessing a body, or possessing a soul living in a body. And so all of those things are connected. Like, if you're off spiritually, it's going to manifest physically and in your mind and mentally. And I know that to be true for me. And once I began to deal with those different areas, things have begun to change for me. And so just in talking to her, like, that was another confirmation for me that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Then lastly was yesterday, one of my baby numbers sent me a message about my videos, and she was just like, keep going. And it was like, God, I don't know that I asked you for this, but God showed me clearly in 3 separate occasions on 3 unrelated things how this is where I'm supposed to be. And so for me, that's a huge win, because sometimes when you're in the midst and in the thick of your own situation, you forget you forget that people are watching you. You forget that God has called you to minister to people, specific people. And I think that's the beautiful thing about ministry, that every person is not going to relate to every minister. And because every person is not going to relate to every minister, God has called and raised up many people to be able to share their life story and their situation with other people, so that way someone can get the message. Like, that's so beautiful, because God knew what vessel or what person I needed to get a message from. So I don't even know why. Well, I know I feel this burden to say this. If you feel called to a particular thing, whether it's healing, whether it's teaching, software engineering, whatever the case may be. If you feel called to it, um, as you're sharing your testimony and as you're sharing your journey, trust and believe there are going to be people watching you in your journey, and the people that are called to learn and glean from you are going to be drawn to you because of who you are. And if anything, that's more of an indictment to be authentic, to be healed, to be whole, to be your most truest self. So peel back those layers of whatever the thing is that you're dealing with. If you are struggling with insecurity, peel back the layers of whatever lies have fed that for you. If you may not realize it if you lack self-awareness, but if you find yourself comparing yourself to other people, peel back the layers that and get to the root of the thing that told you you need to compare yourself to someone else, or you need to imitate someone else, because who you are right now isn't good enough. If you believe that you haven't gone through enough, or you haven't experienced enough in life, peel back the layers that said that you're unqualified or you lack experience because you haven't had the same experiences as someone else. At the end of the day, we're all called to minister to people based on our life experiences. And with that said, just because you don't resonate or relate to someone else doesn't mean someone else will. So at the end of the day, always be your most true self, your most authentic self, and don't forget to celebrate your wins. Like, to me, releasing this app and the amount of work I've had to do over the last 2 months, this has been honestly amongst the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. But it's been so rewarding because I've been able to overcome a lot of things. Like, I'm a Black woman in tech. I'm a Black software engineer. Honestly, for all of my career, I've been the only something, only woman, only Black person, only Black woman. And honestly, like, having been in those spaces for so long, like, I always find myself alone. And this right here, I know God was walking alongside me because of how the burnout made me feel over this past year. And the circumstances I dealt with in one of my past jobs where I just felt constantly attacked. And so to overcome and to be at this point right now where we've had already one big major release and rewriting the app, and we're days away from this next major release, and it's it's a game changer. Like, I'm going to celebrate all of this because I know where I was at the beginning of the year. I know where I was last month. And also, just as it concerns purpose, like, I know I was asking, like, about specific things that I've been doing this year. Is this what you want me to do? But God had to reframe things for me. God had to put things in perspective. Like, some things are resources, some things are tools, but ultimately, the more tools you have, the more people you can reach. And so, all that to say, I know this is kind of rambling. Be your most authentic self, be your most true self. Don't be afraid to share your testimony because you never know who's going to be watching you, who's learning from you, who you may be called to minister to. And then as you have these wins, celebrate these wins, because I can truly say I can thank God because every goal I set for myself, every goal that He gave me, every desire that He's put on my heart to date, except for one thing, and I'm going to go back and finish law school. Everything I've desired or believed I was supposed to do, I've done it and I've achieved it. And so as I achieve these things and check these things off the list, I make room to receive a new dream and to receive a new vision from God, to be able to continue to expand and grow in everything that God has called me to do. So y'all, I don't know. I hope y'all have an amazing week as we close out September. And I'm just really excited and I'm really happy because I know what these last 9 months have been like. I know where I was at in the middle of August. I know where I was in all of those months where that thing was building up. I know where I was at the beginning of this year. And the beginning of this year, I was questioning everything about myself. Like, And now I'm so sure of who I am and what God has called me to do and the different aspects of what God has called me to do that I'm just excited and I can't wait to see what God is going to do in my life. And I'm just going to share it because at the end of the day, I know where I was, and somebody may be in the same place that I was. I know what it feels like to be burnt out. I know what it feels like to want to give up on that one thing that God put in front of you that has constantly challenged you and made you feel alive. I know what it feels like to want to give up on every single thing that you believed you wanted in life. I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to have obstacle after obstacle put on your path and want to quit in the midst of the battle, and to say God had my back this year and he gave me a clear strategy on how to overcome all of the things that I've tackled this year. I am grateful and I'm excited. I'm just excited for whatever God has in store. And so this was very rambly, but if y'all don't know me by now, that's what I do. And I just let the spirit flow however the spirit wants to flow. But bottom line, be your most authentic self. If you don't really know who you are, then I pray that you would ask God, first things first, to teach you to love yourself the way that God loves you, that God would teach you to see yourself the way that he sees you, so that you can receive the vision, receive the idea of who you're called to be and what your purpose is. And then next, when you're ready, that you would share your testimony on your journey as you grow and as you progress, even your ups and your downs, because at the end of the day, you can be able to look back and see where you came from and your progress and your growth and your journey. And you can have a moment just like this where you just know, like, you're right where you're supposed to be. You've overcome the obstacles that were in front of you, and that gives you a point of reference anytime something else challenging may come up. So that way, whenever you feel yourself feeling down or feeling like you don't know if you can keep going or if you should change directions, you can look back to this point or a point like this for yourself and say, I did it then, I can do it again, and I could do it in this situation just the way I did it then too. Have a great night, have an amazing week, and that's it. Bye.